Hello. In this video, we are going to take a look at how to use the CRAAP method when we're trying to evaluate a source online. As we scroll through our social media feeds on various different platforms, we come across many articles that are shared by friends, family, and acquaintances online. And in order to make sure that these sources are relevant, we need to assess them appropriately. In this example, I'm going to evaluate a resource that comes from the American Library's website. Already, right off the top, I can say that I most likely would give this authority and reliability, but we'll go through and see how we can look into that further. So the first step is C for currency, and that denotes timeliness of the article. Now, in this case, this article was written in March, and it deals with our current pandemic that we're facing, the coronavirus pandemic. It is slightly old for the information, but because we're talking about fake news, which is an ongoing issue, I think that the currency in this case is okay. Now, if you were looking at a resource that had something to do with an immediate information, such as looking at statistics for the virus itself, something from March would not pass the currency test here. But because we're looking at an overall topic that we still deal with today as we did in March, as we have for many years since the internet began, and even just media in general, it is okay to say March 20th. Now, if this had been written 3 years ago, this would be different because the virus itself would not have been occurring yet. So having an article about fake news during the specific pandemic we're dealing with now, that might not be relevant to our current day situation. The next step in this method is R, which stands for reliability. And as I said at the top, I would give this website itself reliability and authority, but let's go ahead and look at for reliability. We want to assess the website itself to see if it has reliable information. So we can see at the top the name here, and there's multiple drop downs. So if we're looking at different issues, I would go into the issue archive. And of course, the first step here would be to read the article, right? If you read the article and it doesn't actually pertain to what you want to share, or it doesn't make sense to you, or there's any point at which you feel like it is not something you want to share, then you don't even have to do this test. But at this point, we have already read the article and feel like we want to share it, so we need to make sure that it's reliable before we share it. So if I scroll down, obviously American Libraries is a publication from the American Library Association, and you have to have a subscription to read the full scope of it. But the article that we're looking at today actually is something that's free online to look at. So if we go back, we can use the article itself to look for the reliability. So if I scroll down through that article, I can see that it was originally published in another ALA publication, Programming Librarian, just the day before. So it does have 2 publications. If I scroll through, there's many links. There's a lot of different information here, which this article is actually really good for what we're talking about, how to assess if things are fake news. And then we can see that Sarah Ostman is actually the communications manager for the ALA's Public Programs Office, so she does have some authority, which is the next step. Reliability and authority are kind of overlapping, so as you scroll through a website or the article itself, you can kind of assess both reliability and authority by deciding if the publication and most often if the publication and the author have both reliability and authority. And at this point, I would say yes and move on to the next step, which is accuracy. For the accuracy step, Obviously, you've already read through your article. If you feel there's any point at which you don't understand a fact, you should definitely either click a link if it's available within the article about that term or concept. But also, if there is no link that's offered by the author, you can always go over to Wikipedia to start your search of the topic. Now, I would not recommend Wikipedia being your last stop for researching a topic. However, it is a good starting point. So let's just quickly go over to Wikipedia. I had already opened it in another tab just to make it a little bit quicker. And the main page of Wikipedia gives you a search. If you're not already in the language that you want to be searching in, you can change that. Obviously, it's defaulting here to English because my computer is. But so in this case, we're going to look up coronavirus. So if this is something new, say you read this article in March when it was published and it was before we knew a lot about it, you might want to look into the virus itself and do a little bit of digging. So right here, as soon as you start typing, it's very nice. It gives you some tips of different articles. So this is the information that we want to look at. And as you can see, there's quite a bit. You have links throughout. And the best part of Wikipedia is to scroll to the very bottom. And this is a long article, so I'm going to quickly scroll. Towards the bottom, there's a references section. This is what you really want to focus on if you want to do some more in-depth research. So there are many links to other pieces of information online, links to articles in peer-reviewed journals. So because this is a medical condition, you're researching a disease, you would probably want to be reading some information from professionals in that field, and those are most likely going to be in peer-reviewed journals. And so that's a good place to find links. And then once you get into those journal articles, if you really want to keep researching, you can link from their citations as well. There's also some other places, so just general World Health Organization information. So you get the point here. This is a really great resource, and this article in particular seems to be quite a good resource. So anything you want to know about this virus, they seem to have it linked in there. So once you have enough information that you can read through the article and feel like you know that it's pretty accurate, it will pass that test. The other thing about accuracy is if there's any myths that you think or anything fake that you think, any hoaxes, it actually is mentioned in this article to talk about this, to go to Snopes. So Snopes is a website that you can look up things that are folklore, hoaxes, urban legends, as it says. And it's a great place for you to find out more. So I'm going to actually click the link right from this article, which is great that this author gave us that resource to go directly to. And this will give us more information about coronavirus fact checking. So there are a lot of things on the internet about COVID, coronavirus 19, people saying it isn't real, different things going on, different hoax scenarios. And so in order to dispel those, Snopes is a really great place to go and just read articles about different things. When you first get to Snopes, if you have a specific thing you want to fact check, if there's a myth something you've come across online that you think is a myth, you can go right in here, type it in, and it'll bring up the topic. And then once you can click on a link to the topic, it will basically bring you into a list of articles that deal with that topic. You can also go right into this fact checks area, and that brings you to a list of recent rumors online. So if there's something that you sort of saw on the peripheral of, maybe you were scrolling and you saw something on the sidebar and you couldn't quite remember what it was, but you thought, that's strange. Snopes has a lot of articles about different things that have come across social media. So they're very on top of keeping up with facts online and making sure that we're actually getting good information and kind of dispelling the misinformation, the disinformation, and the fake news that can be shared online. So your last step here is purpose, and obviously if you've read through this and you like the article and it fits the purpose of what you want to share with your friends and family and colleagues and just people that you're associated with on social media, then you can go back to where you were in your social media feed and either reshare it from the person who originally posted it or just go ahead and share it right from here. This one passed. Obviously, it's in a good resource. It's a magazine that's edited and fact checked prior to publication, so it's pretty easy to say that this is going to be a reliable source. When you use this method, it's most likely going to be in sources that are not as reliable, and you'll probably only get through maybe 1 or 2 steps before you dispel from one of those unreliable sources. So even though it took me several minutes here to do this particular one, that was because we made it all the way through and it passed. The resources that are not going to pass will not take you that long. So maybe you're going to give 30 seconds to a minute really to look through these resources, and that is invaluable for the internet to have people doing their own fact checking on resources they find online. We really need to do this to dispel disinformation and to just really move forward with our quality of information online. Thanks for joining me today as we reviewed this resource. If you have any questions, please feel free to click the links in the newsletter to get to the Hippie Girl Media site, or you can send me email directly at hippiegirl@hippiegirl.com. That is HIPPIEGRRL. And thank you again, and I look forward to sharing more information in the future.